On July 25, 2000, something tragic happened in the skies of France. A very special plane, the Concorde, was getting ready to fly. But this wasn't an ordinary plane. The Concorde was a supersonic jet, one of the fastest passenger planes in the world. It could fly faster than the speed of sound, reaching speeds of 1,235 kilometers per hour. That day, the Concorde was booked by a German company to take their people from Paris to New York. The passengers were excited. They were going on a luxury cruise from New York to Ecuador, a 16-day dream vacation. The plane stood on the runway at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. Everything looked normal, but far away, something dangerous had already happened. At 2:38 p.m. World Standard Time, a large U.S. airline plane took off from the same airport. During takeoff, a small piece of metal broke off from this U.S. plane. It was just around 17 inches long. This metal strip was part of the engine cover, called protecting covering of engine, but the U.S. plane flew away safely. No one noticed the metal strip fall to the runway, and there it stayed, quietly waiting on the ground. At 4:42 p.m., the Concorde began speeding down the runway, reaching 300 kilometers per hour. But then, disaster struck. The Concorde's front left tire ran over the metal strip left by the U.S. plane. The sharp metal cut the tire, and it burst with a loud explosion. A large piece of rubber, weighing 4.5 kilograms, shot up at nearly 500 kilometers per hour. It hit the bottom of the left wing. At first, it didn't break through the fuel tank, but it caused a shockwave, a sudden blast of pressure inside the wing. That shockwave hit the weakest part of a fuel tank. The tank cracked open and fuel started gushing out. Within seconds, the leaking fuel caught fire after touching hot engine parts. The flames were sucked into the engines. Instead of clean air, the engines were pulling in very hot, smoky air. As it was a supersonic jet, it had 4 engines. Engine 1 and Engine 2 began to fail. Engine 1 slowly started working again, but the fire kept growing. A fire warning went off. The flight engineer was ordered to shut down Engine 2, and yet the Concorde was already off the ground. The air traffic controller saw the fire and quickly alerted the pilots, but it was too late. The Concorde had passed its point of no return, a speed where the plane must take off, even if something goes wrong. The landing gear, wheels, were also damaged. They couldn't be pulled back into the plane. This made the plane heavier and caused extra resistance, like flying with the brakes on. Meanwhile, the engines weren't giving full power. The Concorde couldn't gain speed. It struggled to climb. While the fire continued, it damaged a special wing control part, which helps the plane go up and down and tilt side to side, called the elevon. The inner elevon on the left wing was melted by the extreme heat. Then, Engine 1, which had recovered, suddenly surged. That means it had a big engine problem and failed again, this time for good. Now, only engines 3 and 4 on the right side were working well, but that caused uneven pushing power, means some engines working more than others. The right side was strong, the left was weak. This pushed the plane hard to one side, and it began to tilt dangerously to the left. It rolled more than 100 degrees, almost flipped sideways. The pilots tried their best. They slowed down engines 3 and 4 to balance the plane. But now, the Concorde was flying too slow and had too much resistance. It started to lose lift, the upward force that keeps planes in the sky. It became impossible to control. The Concorde turned around almost 180 degrees from the original flight path. Then, it crashed into a hotel in the town of Gonesse. Just minutes after takeoff, all 109 people on board died, including passengers and crew. 4 people on the ground also lost their lives. A nearby truck driver filmed the horror. A plane in flames, struggling in the sky, then crashing into a fireball. These passengers had been ready for the trip of a lifetime, a cruise from New York to Ecuador, but instead, the Concorde's final flight ended in disaster. In 2005, French police started investigating U.S. airline because the metal piece fell from one of their planes on the runway. Later, a mechanic named John Taylor, who fixed the plane, and his boss Stanley Ford were also blamed. The court said the repair was not done properly. But United States Airlines said they were being blamed unfairly and that the Concorde was already on fire before it even hit that metal. At the same time, some top French engineers who worked on the Concorde were also blamed. The court said they knew the fuel tanks could break if hit by something, but still let the plane fly. The trial happened in 2010. The court said the U.S. airline was guilty, gave them a fine, and told them to pay Air France France €1 million. The mechanic got a 15-month suspended sentence, which means no jail but still serious. But in 2012, another court, a higher one, said the airline and the mechanic were not guilty after all and took back the punishment. However, U.S. airline was still told to help pay money to the families of the people who died in the crash. After the crash, the company made many changes and improvements to the Concorde plane to make it safer. Because of these changes, the Concorde started flying again on November 7, 2001. But then, after the September 11th attacks in the U.S., when airplanes were used, terrorist attacks, fewer people wanted to fly, especially on expensive planes like Concorde. So Air France and British Airways decided to stop using the Concorde completely in 2003.